He didn't recognize me, not when he stepped into the boardroom, not when he shook hands across the table, not even when he started pitching confident, charismatic, like the floor belonged to him. It didn't. Not anymore. It was a Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. sharp, San Francisco light flooding through the glass panels of Electra Capital's IC room. 4 partners, 3 analysts, 1 founder, and me. He walked in the way he always had, like momentum was something you could wear. No hesitation, no memory. Not of me, not of what he did. He smiled at everyone, introduced himself like the room hadn't. Googled him already. I'm Nathan Carter, CEO and co-founder of LinkPay. We're building the next generation of global remittance infrastructure, founder-led product first, ready to scale. It was rehearsed. Every syllable, every breath, every borrowed phrase. He didn't look at me. Not once. Maybe I'd changed haircut, sharper eyes, colder posture, straighter. Maybe I blended into the kind of silence that no longer needed to ask for attention. Or maybe he just didn't expect the woman he erased from his cap table to be sitting across from him holding a vote. He launched into his deck slides full of buzzwords. He didn't invent models. He didn't design, and frameworks I knew better than anyone, because I had built them years ago, before I learned what it costs to share a vision with someone who only sees their own name on the door. I said nothing, not at first, just watched, not him, the room, the reactions, the raised eyebrows, the nods. He was good at this part, always had been. But I'd gotten better at something else waiting. There was a time I would have cleared my throat, interrupted, tried to prove he was stealing my work. That time had passed. Now I understood some revenge doesn't start with confrontation. It starts with giving someone all the rope they need and watching what they do with it. He still hadn't looked at me, still hadn't seen. And that's when I knew this wasn't a comeback. It was a test, for him, for me, for the version of myself that once believed he was worth following. He didn't remember me, but he would. We met the way many founders do, accidentally, at some startup panel with bad lighting and worse coffee. He liked my question during Q&A. I liked how quickly he challenged the answer. That night we stayed 2 hours past the last speaker sketching product ideas on napkins and tearing each other's logic apart like it was flirting. I'd been through worse first dates. 2 weeks later, we started working together. 2 months after that, we were in as co-founders, in as a couple, in as 2 people betting their entire 20s on one thing, LinkPay. He brought the charm. I built the back end. He closed the angel round. I built the integrations from scratch. I thought it was a partnership. Turns out it was a performance. Back then, I still believed in shared credit. In all the late-night ramen and code pushes and walk-home arguments that end in ideas. I didn't see it right away. Not when the press started quoting only him. Not when VCs asked for the CEO and meant him by default. Not even when he started calling me his technical co-founder instead of just co-founder. The first red flag wasn't loud. It was the absence of something small. A question at our first investor dinner. A partner asked how we planned to reduce CAC over 12 months. Nathan said that's Julia's magic. She's the brain behind all that. He smiled. Everyone laughed. But he never let me answer. He just kept going, praising my work while pocketing the mic. We started writing a new growth strategy a few weeks later. I drafted the framework, built the retention funnel model, mapped out user segmentation in Southeast Asia, and prototyped incentive tiers. He called it too complicated, said investors don't buy that level of granularity, said I was over-engineering. I dropped it. Not because he was right, but because I didn't want another fight. 2 months later, that same strategy showed up in his pitch deck. Word for word, slide for slide, presented as his, with no mention of me. I confronted him. He smiled and said, I mean, it's our strategy, right? That's when I realized what I was dealing with. Not a partner, but a stage actor, and I was part of the set design. We closed our first institutional round shortly after. A big milestone, celebratory drinks, late-night congratulations. And the next morning, I got the amended paperwork. New terms, new voting structure, new cap table. Mine wasn't on it. I called him. He didn't pick up. He texted instead, "Let's talk in person. It's not what it looks like." But it was. He offered me a soft exit, 6 figures, no strings, no drama. Said it was better this way. That some investors weren't comfortable with dual leadership. That a clean narrative sells better. That I was brilliant, but maybe not front-facing enough. I didn't scream, didn't threaten legal action, didn't leak anything to TechCrunch. I just sat across from him one last time, listened to him spin it as a strategic move and left. No handshake, no closure, just an old hoodie in a cardboard box and a contract I didn't sign because I didn't have a choice. The world didn't end. No one cared. The company moved on. The headlines kept calling him the genius behind LinkPay. My name was deleted with the next round of marketing copy. I wasn't just out of the company, I was out of the story. I'd like to say I got over it quickly, that I moved on and used it as fuel, but the truth is I disappeared. Not from tech, from myself. I started to believe what the silence suggested, that maybe I wasn't meant to lead, that maybe he was the more valuable half, that maybe I really was just a brain behind the curtain. But pain like capital can be reinvested. And silence, if you let it stretch long enough, becomes strategy. There's a kind of silence that follows betrayal. Not the explosive kind. The kind that stretches hour by hour, day by day, until it becomes your new normal. That's where I lived, for a while. After LinkPay, I didn't jump into the next startup. Didn't post a thread about what I learned, didn't rebrand. I just withdrew. Took a job in consulting, spent my days fixing other people's operational nightmares, and my nights wondering if the best parts of me had already been used and discarded. In the startup world, you only matter if you're visible. And I had vanished, which in a way made me easier to study. I started watching the patterns, who got funded, who got celebrated, who got forgiven for bad numbers. Because they pitched with passion. Spoiler, it wasn't people like me. I wasn't bitter. I was done being bitter. Bitterness is loud. What I needed was leverage. So I applied to business school. Not for the brand, not for the network. I needed to learn the language of power, dilution, voting rights, liquidation preferences, convertible notes with hidden knives, the words they'd used against me. I wanted to understand them not emotionally, but surgically. And that's when I met Charlie. She didn't smile much, didn't make small talk, didn't pretend to care about feelings. What she did care about was performance. She reviewed my coursework like it was a term sheet, challenged my assumptions like they were liabilities. And after a particularly brutal case presentation, she pulled me aside and said, "Don't argue, build. That's how we win." I looked her up that night, found a trail that wasn't in the official bios. She'd once been a partner at another fund, a rising star, until she backed a female founder the committee didn't like. Nathan had been part of that deal. He undermined the round, spun the narrative, and Charlie took the fall. No headlines, no lawsuit, just quiet removal, standard clause, disappearing woman. We never talked about it. But she knew I knew, and from that moment on, we understood each other. After graduation, she referred me to Electra, said they needed someone who didn't fall for theater, said I'd know what to look for and what to ignore. I started as an analyst, invisible, efficient, unshakable. By the time I got promoted to associate founders, didn't remember my name, but they remembered my questions. I didn't raise my voice, didn't take credit in meetings, didn't try to look impressive. I just did the work, and people noticed, especially when my deals started performing better than the ones backed by louder partners. It was during this stretch that I met Carmen Ruiz. Technical, careful, no swagger, just product. Her pitch was quiet, her deck was clean, her traction was real. But she didn't light up the room. One of our juniors wrote, "Technically solid, lacks charisma, might not hold investor attention." That note felt like deja vu. I didn't fight for her, not yet, I just watched. Quietly added her to my deal tracker, followed her metrics, set a Google alert. Because I didn't need her to convince the room today. I just needed her to keep building. Back then I wasn't a founder, and I wasn't yet a funder, but I was no longer a footnote. I was the one holding the pen. Power isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just patient. That's what I learned at Electra. I didn't come in with a bang. No media post, no new chapter announcement. I just walked into the building on a Monday, sat down with my laptop, and started doing the work no one else wanted to do. The numbers, the red flags, the deals that were too boring to chase, but too solid to ignore. While others competed to lead the hottest rounds, I tracked retention curves. While they fought to be in the room with the loudest founders, I followed the ones who didn't pitch like TED speakers. And slowly, I built my own pattern recognition. Charlie noticed. She never complimented me outright, but she gave me more room, more visibility, more weight in committee decisions. By the time the next partner seat opened up, I didn't lobby for it. I didn't ask. She just slid an envelope across the table and said, "It's yours if you want it. No one needs to know how long you've already been running the room." I said yes, quietly. No celebration, no post. But I bought a new pen, the kind you sign term sheets with. Not because it made a difference, but because it reminded me I no longer needed anyone's permission to write the next deal. That was around the time I saw his name again. It was buried in a pre-screening memo from one of our junior analysts. The founder, Nathan Carter, company LinkPay, funding goal Series B, $12 million. I didn't flinch, didn't flag it, didn't pull rank to kill the meeting. Instead, I approved it, silently. Because when you're holding the match, you don't blow on the fuse, you let it burn. 2 days later, I reviewed the deck. The file name was typical LinkPay Investor Presentation Q2. But the content that wasn't typical, slide after slide of recycled logic metrics wrapped in buzzwords, a user acquisition model that sounded eerily, almost insultingly familiar. And there it was, page 14. The 3-tier referral strategy for cross-border remittance. The one he once called over-engineered. The one I wrote 4 years ago. Same flow, same phrasing. Even the chart design looked like a cleaned-up version of my original sketch. I didn't get angry, didn't even feel insulted. It felt predictable, like a rerun of a show I used to love. One where I finally knew how it ended. I could have confronted him before the pitch, could have declined the meeting, could have sent a memo to kill the deal early. But that's not how this game works. You don't win by stopping the play. You win by letting it unfold on your terms. So I cleared my calendar for the day of his pitch, made sure I was seated 2 chairs from center, just far enough to be overlooked, just close enough to see everything. That same week, I checked back in on Carmen Ruiz, the founder we passed on 6 months ago, the one with real traction but no spark. She'd just crossed 300K in MRR. I sent her a short note. "Still building, let's talk again. No promise, no hype, just a signal." The pieces were falling into place. Nathan thought this pitch would be his comeback. He didn't realize it was already part of someone else's strategy. Because I wasn't playing his game anymore. I was running my own. And the long game always belongs to the one who keeps the receipts. He walked in differently this time. No bounce, no big entrance, just calculation. He knew I'd be there, and yet he still came. Which told me one thing: he either underestimated the room or overestimated himself, probably both. The IC room was full, 4 partners, 1 observer, and a founder who used to call me his better half. He sat across the table. Not directly opposite, that would have felt too confrontational. He chose the seat diagonally, just enough distance to pretend this was business as usual. It wasn't. His new CTO was with him. A woman this time. Young, smart, sharp-eyed, silent. She didn't say a word during the pitch, just clicked through slides and nodded when cued. I looked at her and saw a younger version of myself, the technical co-founder in the background carrying the product, but not the power. He was still doing it, still casting. He hadn't evolved. He just replaced the props. He started the pitch like a monologue. Since our last round, LinkPay has doubled revenue, optimized burn, and unlocked organic growth in Southeast Asia via a performance-led referral model. I didn't blink, didn't write, didn't move. He kept going. Slide 14, the one I'd been waiting for. The strategy I'd built by hand, dismissed by him, and now watching him deliver as if it had always been his. 3 tiers, regional segmentation, incentivized remittance flows tied to retention brackets, Exactly the model he once told me was too academic for VCs. The same model that helped get him to this room, to this round, to this ask $12 million. He paused, looked around for approval. His eyes skimmed past me, then bounced back, and lingered. That's when it happened, the exact moment recognition landed. Not in words, not in expressions, in silence, a beat too long, a shift in posture, a small involuntary flicker in the throat. He knew. The room moved on, questions were asked, retention metrics, exit projections, CAC. I let the others go first, let him believe he still had control. Then when there was just enough quiet to cut through, I spoke. This slide, I said, tapping the screen without raising my voice. Where was this strategy developed? Nathan smiled, cautious, internally, with our data science team. We iterated over 6 months, I interrupted, gently. Do you remember the Jakarta beta funnel from 4 years ago? The one with tiered churn mapping based on wallet migration logic? He blinked. Of course, that was early R&D. We never fully implemented it. I nodded. I did. I built it. And this version is a cleaned up copy. Even the chart structure is the same. I still have the paper draft. The CTO froze. The partner next to me stopped taking notes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't push. Just enough truth to stain the slide deck. He tried to recover. Well, I mean, great strategies resurface right. What matters is execution. I tilted my head. Execution without integrity isn't leadership, it's theater. Then I looked back at the screen and said nothing more. After the pitch, one partner asked if I needed follow-up. I said no. The meeting ended quietly. No fireworks, no confrontation, just the weight of everything unsaid. Nathan didn't speak to me afterward, didn't email, didn't ask for clarity. He knew, not just that I remembered, but that the room did too. Because power isn't always about saying the most. Sometimes it's about knowing when you've already said enough. And letting the silence finish the sentence for you. Electra doesn't do drama. We don't argue in the room. We write memos, we vote, and when a deal dies, it dies quietly. 2 days after the pitch, the IC met privately. No founders, no decks, just numbers and judgment. Daniel, another partner, was leaning yes. He's confident, seasoned, and backable. The market clearly responds to him. We've funded worse, and he's grown from the last cycle. I listened, and then I opened my folder. Inside was a printed PDF, dated 4 years earlier. Titled Cross-Border Growth Logic, Southeast Asia, my name in the footer. My handwriting scanned in on page 6. This strategy was submitted to LinkPay's Series A advisory doc, I said. Back then, it was considered too complex. Now it's being sold as innovation. No one argued. They didn't need to. Because the memo spoke louder than accusation ever could. We voted. The deal didn't pass. It wasn't personal. It was math, and math has no loyalty. That afternoon, Nathan sent an email. If there's any feedback you're willing to share, I'd still value your perspective. I respect what you've built. I didn't reply. Because respect without accountability is just another way to stay clean while doing damage. Instead, I made a call. Carmen picked up on the second ring. Still building, I asked. Always, she said. No small talk, just alignment. We scheduled a follow-up. She brought cleaner metrics, deeper usage cohorts, and a new revenue stream from a mid-size enterprise client. She wasn't trying to impress me. She was trying to improve the product. And that's exactly why I wired her $12 million. Full Series B, no pushback, no drama. A month later, she launched her V2. 3 months in, she signed a deal that pulled one of LinkPay's largest clients. 6 months in her platform past theirs in active volume. I didn't gloat, didn't post a tweet, didn't leak the story to anyone. Because this wasn't a takedown, it was a correction. I saw Nathan again, briefly, at a fintech event where he wasn't on the speaker list. He walked past the booth where Carmen's team was demoing live, didn't stop, didn't make eye contact. The buzz around him was gone. The air didn't bend when he moved anymore. That's how it ends for men like him. Not in scandal, but in silence. The startup didn't fail overnight. It missed targets, lost engineers, burned too fast. And when the bridge round didn't close, it folded. No eulogy, no Medium post, just a redirect on the homepage. Link Pay is no longer active. We thank our early users. I never needed him to fall publicly. I just needed him to realize that the industry had moved on without him, and that the room he once thought he owned now answered to me. I didn't do press, didn't go on a podcast tour, didn't write a LinkedIn post with 10 bullet points about resilience. I just kept working. But word gets around, quietly, in founder group chats, in Slack channels that no investors see, in whispers between women who've been interrupted one too many times. There's someone at Electra who actually listens. She doesn't care how polished your pitch is. She asks the hard questions, but she wants you to win. They didn't always use my name. They didn't have to. The real shift isn't when you're quoted. It's when your presence rewrites how the room behaves, even when you're not in it. Months passed. Carmen scaled. We stayed in touch, not often, just enough. Then one day I visited her new office. She was mentoring a younger founder, nervous brilliant, talking too fast. I watched them for 5 minutes, didn't interrupt, because Carmen didn't need me to lead anymore. She was doing it herself. And in her, I saw the version of myself no one ever made space for. Until now. That night, I opened my inbox. One unread message from Nathan Carter. No subject line, just 2 words. You won. I didn't smile. Didn't forward it to Charlie. Didn't screenshot it for some future memoir. I just hit reply. I never needed to. Then archived the thread. I don't carry that story anymore. Not like a scar, not like a chip on my shoulder. I carry it like a blueprint. One I never needed to defend, only to outgrow. And these days, when a founder walks into the room, shaky voice, strong product, underestimated by everyone but their users, I don't ask where they went to school, or how many Twitter followers they have, or how well they can perform a pitch. I ask one thing: how do you solve it better than anyone else? Because if they can answer that, they don't need permission. They just need someone who won't ask for one.